Everybody knows that our native species are in trouble. We all want to fix this, but how many birds have you saved today? Aotearoa rightly has an international reputation for incredible scenery, wildlife and culture. Native forests, grasslands and mountains cover 47% of our country and are home to thousands of endemic species. This taonga earned New Zealand $41 billion through tourism in 2019, which directly employed around 8.4% of our working population. Tourism status as a cornerstone of our economy has only been highlighted by the impact of COVID. When the world can fly back here, we need to ensure that our breathtaking beauty survives. Unfortunately, introduced mammalian predators, specifically rats, stoats and possums, have already caused the extinction of 51 bird species, 1 bat, 3 frogs, 3 lizards, 1 freshwater fish, 4 plants and several invertebrates. Our endemic species did not evolve to live with these predators, meaning they are especially vulnerable. Trapping is an effective and essential tool in New Zealand's arsenal against rats, stoats and possums, but it's also highly labour intensive. Not all traps in a network are set off at one time, so trappers have to visit and revisit to clear the traps and reset them. A promising new technology would allow conservationists to know exactly when the traps have been set off instead of relying on guesswork. Fundamentally, this consists of an inexpensive sensor mounted on each trap, wirelessly reporting its status. This enables them to better time and plan their expeditions to reset the traps, which are expensive and time-consuming. It was found that operational cost savings of up to 70% could be achieved with this technology. We can even go a step further. In this age of crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, I see no reason why we cannot crowdsource trap resetting. Traps in need of attention could be displayed to the general public through an app, who would voluntarily reset them. This may save the proper volunteers considerable time and money accessing hard-to-reach traps. Let's rewind a bit. Economic gains certainly aren't the only reason to save our species. Aotearoa is home to many diverse and unique cultures, but one thing we all have in common is a love of the land and a desire to maintain it. To the Maori, the land, or whenua, is so much more than a resource. It's a connection to whakapapa, to ancestors, gods, and wairua. Maori quickly realised that humans have an impact on the environment and implemented conservation devices like the rahui, a temporary restriction on the use or exploitation of an area. The Pākehā too learned to value the land. This is even reflected in the stereotypical southern man who lives isolated amongst nature, caring for his land and herd of sheep. In fact, my own grandfather and his father before him were examples of these southern men. The former worked in the Forest Service, developing better methods for 1080 application in the 80s. The latter trapped possums and rabbits in the Waitaki Valley during the Second World War, earning a living for his family. If we lose our natural flora and fauna, our many diverse cultures are all degraded. In 2016, the government put forward the Predator-Free 2050 plan with the goal of eradicating all introduced mammalian predators by the year 2050. Conservationists already have a lot of methods for combating these species, but what can you or I do? To figure that out, we first need to understand how the professionals do it. Poisoning, also called baiting, is an effective and proven technique for pest suppression, but not for eradication. A single aerial drop of 1080 poison can clear 98% of possums and 90% of rats in a targeted area. To finish the job though, achieving full eradication, traps need to be used. Aerial poisoning also isn't applicable to places like cities, so trapping sometimes has to do the whole job. Traps, however, are highly labour-intensive to reset, and are thus only checked every 1 to 4 weeks. Many can only be accessed on foot. There's also a suggestion that a hot trap effect may exist, where pests will be more attracted to a trap soon after another pest visited it. If traps were reset faster, then the hot trap effect could allow for quicker recaptures and exponentially more pests caught. The fundamental issue with traps is that human resetters never turn up at the right time. We always come too late, leaving the trap out of action for a while, or we waste our resources visiting traps too early, before the kill has been made. One solution to this is self-resetting traps. These do exist in limited capacity today, however they're quite expensive and new to market. This means that they have nowhere near the years of testing and refinement that manual traps do. These traps rely on relatively pricey chemical lures compared to the simple and cheap peanut butter, eggs and waste meat, which are widely used in manual traps. Some also use disposable CO2 cartridges, which cost money and generate waste. Another issue with these traps is one of data collection. Achieving our predator-free goal requires us to keep very close tabs on what we're catching, how often, and where. Due to their novelty, existing automatic traps have very limited collection ability. This will likely improve in coming years, however, it will still be near impossible for species information and other detailed parameters to be collected. Automatic traps may yet become the norm, but to meet our deadline, we need to act immediately. It's well worth noting that we already have thousands, if not millions, of manual traps deployed in remote locations. Replacing these all with automatic traps will be an extremely expensive undertaking. Another promising option would be to upgrade these traps with a comparatively cheap wireless monitoring device. A chosen group of people will be alerted when a trap is triggered, allowing both the timing and routes of trap maintainers to be adjusted, maximizing predators caught and minimizing resources used. Essentially, we would be able to arrive at the traps at the correct time. These devices do already exist, but much like self-resetting traps, are in their early days. A number of studies have analysed the feasibility of wireless sensor networks for trapping. A Manaki Whenua paper conducted a cost-benefit analysis and found that significant benefit-to-cost ratios can be obtained, but these depend particularly on the price of the technology, but also on other parameter values used, for example the rebaiting time and the lifespan of the sensor itself. Clearly, the cost of each sensor is of chief importance. The cheapest existing option, EcoNode, costs $105 per trap, while others cost upwards of $250. This means that even the best options only just break even. Of course, the exact figures may have changed with inflation, but the point remains, this technology is extremely price sensitive. It's also important to remember that we need some way for the traps to wirelessly communicate. One interesting option for this is the LoRaWAN protocol. This is a long-range, low-power radio system, ideal for remote and irregularly serviced traps. In fact, it's proven. EcoNode, the existing trap monitoring device, already uses LoRaWAN. Spark and other groups already operate networks just like they do for your cell phone. Uniquely, however, it's still possible to make your own network where coverage is not already available. This means that cheap wireless connectivity will be available near cities, and it will be relatively easy to add your own connectivity off the grid. It's not quite as simple as that though, as installing connectivity is easy, perhaps, but not cheap. The absolute minimum EcoNode gateway costs $450, excluding power, internet access, and other utility costs. To keep costs down, research suggests that a mesh network could be applied. In a standard non-mesh network, each trap only communicates directly and exclusively with the gateway. In a mesh network, though, traps also communicate with each other, passing along the message until a gateway can be found. Theoretically, as long as traps are within range of each other, this network could be as large as desired, with only one gateway. Better yet, any LoRaWAN trapping system could be turned into a mesh network with only a clever software update, since they all already contain the same radios. This means no extra cost for a lot of cost savings elsewhere. Unfortunately, no existing trap sensor devices yet utilize this mesh technology. However, it was investigated and found to be very promising in the same Manaki Whenua study. It's also widely applied in environmental monitoring systems in a similar environment. So, it seems clear that wireless monitoring of traps is a promising yet underdeveloped and underutilized tool for conservation. Decreasing costs through increased competition and application of new technologies such as mesh networks mean that these devices are likely to become a reliable and widely used conservation tool, especially until we sort out the finer points of fully autonomous traps. This is all well and good for those already involved in conservation, but how many rats have you or I killed today? In this age of crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, I see no reason why we cannot crowdsource trap maintenance. The general public could be allowed to see nearby sprung traps via an app. This would be a bit like iNaturalist, an app we use to map plant and animal species. This process could also be gamified, much like Pokemon Go, and users could be allowed to post and share their catches with their friends, incentivizing use. A system where work is peer-reviewed and users gain and lose reputation points in accordance with their successes and failures will ensure that traps are reset correctly and abuse is minimized. It's also well recognized that tangata whenua and other minority groups are insufficiently included in today's conservation efforts. Current conservation volunteerings are heavily structured and seem to require a large commitment in a way that isn't necessarily compatible with our busy lives. An ad hoc volunteering program, like I'm proposing, could lead to higher engagement by breaking down these barriers. Other groups would be benefited too. These devices could be sold to just about anyone, so farmers and lifestyle blockers could better manage their pest populations, New Zealand is more than just wilderness, and every square inch of it needs to be cleared of predators. I'm actually working on a trap sensor system like this for a school project and competitions like Eureka. However, there's no shortage of people better qualified than I, and no shortage of other pieces of technology to apply to trapping and conservation as a whole. Let's apply that theme of crowdsourcing to all areas of conservation, not just the grunt work. Let's summarise. Trapping is an effective and essential tool in New Zealand's arsenal against introduced mammalian predators which threaten our livelihoods and national identity. However, it's also highly labour-intensive to maintain and reset a network of traps. Obviously, not all traps in the network are set off at one time. If only the required traps could be visited, significant savings would be made. Wireless trap-mounted sensors could report when the trap has been sprung. Using the information they yield, a new, optimised route for maintainers could be planned. Operational cost savings of up to 70% could be achieved with this technology. This information could also be made available to the public through an app, so anyone could reset traps nearby to them. This may save the proper volunteers considerable time accessing hard-to-reach traps. It's time to bring conservation into the 21st century. Thank you.